If everything goes according to plan, the Kennedy Space Center in Florida will witness the launch of the first spacecraft in 50 years that can transport people to the moon. The massive space station system rocket will launch an Orion spacecraft, which can accommodate up to 6 astronauts on the 1.3-mile Artemis 1 test mission. The 42-day mission, which will carry its unmanned Orion craft 40,000 miles beyond the moon's far side, will show that the United States is once more prepared to land people on the moon's surface if it is successful. Welcome to Fly Me to the Moon, science fans. In order to receive notifications for new videos, please turn on the bell icon and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Let's get going. Let's examine what the Artemis program actually entails. The Artemis program, a robotic and human moon exploration mission run by the United States National Aeronautics and Space Administration, NASA, is a collaboration between the European Space Agency, ESA, the Japanese Aerospace Exploration Agency, JAXA, and the Canadian Space Agency, CSA. The key components of the program include the Space Launch System, SLS, Orion spacecraft, the Lunar Gateway Space Station, and the Commercial Human Landing System, most notably Starship, ACE-LS. The basis for this collaboration between public and private space organizations is the Artemis Accords and related contracts. As of July 2022, 21 countries had ratified the agreements, including long-standing allies of the United States in space, including the European Space Agency and agencies from Canada, Japan, and the United Kingdom, and emerging powers like Brazil, South Korea, and the United Arab Emirates. Let's learn more about the Artemis base camps now. At the end of the 2020s, construction is expected to begin on the Artemis Base Camp lunar base. Its 3 main parts are the Lunar Terrain Vehicle, the Habitable Mobility Platform, and the Foundational Surface Habitat. It would support missions lasting up to 2 months and be used to investigate technologies for application on Mars. Just over a dozen potential locations for this moon outpost were listed by NASA earlier this month. They are all located close to the lunar South Pole, which is hoped to conceal frozen comet water and its darkened craters for future moon inhabitants to enjoy. According to NASA, the Artemis lunar base plan, which is named for Apollo's sister in a nod to ambitions to send female astronauts to the moon, will cost $93 billion in total between 2012 and 2025, including rockets, capsules, and landers. This resulted in NASA's Inspector General criticizing Congress in March for its wastefulness in requiring the space agency to sign cost overrun and delay guaranteeing contracts for the moon mission, which generated ongoing budget difficulties at the agency and devoured legitimate science initiatives there. In a dispute with its Inspector General, NASA claims that each launch to the SLS, which it refers to as Mega Moon Rocket, will cost only $2 billion. This claim is included in the Artemis plan. For the past 10 years, detractors have referred to it as the Senate launch system. With the intention of discarding them, they actually instructed NASA to construct them using reusable space shuttle engines, continued Cohen. Only NASA would invest billions to create amazing, reusable rocket engines and then billions more to mount them on a rocket that will only use them once, according to the statement. According to a damning NASA Inspector General's report published in June, even a mobile launch tower for the rocket went over budget, costing more than tripling to $1 billion, and delayed by more than 2 years. The Artemis Foundation habitat, formerly known as the Artemis Surface Asset, is the first habitat. According to current launch plans, it would land on the surface in a manner akin to the HLS. The pressurized habitat would be delivered to the gateway, where it would be connected to a descent stage that was launched separately from a commercial launcher and made use of HLS's transfer stage and other 2019 concepts. It is launched as a single unit from an SLS Block 1B and lands on the ground. Second, a sizable pressurized rover called the Habitable Mobility Platform would be utilized to ferry crews across considerable distances. In addition to the space exploration vehicle created for the Constellation program, which was constructed and tested, NASA has created other pressurized rovers. It was referred to as the Mobile Habitat in the 2020 Flight Manifest, implying that it would have a similar function to the ILREC lunar bus. Although it could be operated autonomously from the gateway or other locations, the crew would be able to use it when it was ready on the surface. Finally, NASA published 2 requests for information in February 2020 for both a crewed and uncrewed unpressurized surface rover. A CLPS vehicle would approach the LTV before the Artemis 3 mission. Crews would be moved throughout the exploration site using it. It would perform duties that the Apollo lunar rover did. A program office for the rover will be formally established by NASA in July 2020 at the Johnson Space Center in Houston. However, success will not be without cost. The Artemis mission, which will return humans to the moon before serving as a launch pad to carry astronauts to Mars, will be funded with $93 billion from U.S. taxpayers. Major concerns are currently being voiced regarding the necessity of sending humans into space. In contrast to people, robots do not require access to food, air, or restrooms, and they are not required to be brought back to Earth. Many scientists argue that the nasty task should be left to automated craft. Elon Musk, the CEO of Tesla and SpaceX, proposed a solution for the failing mission that would eventually put them on the lunar surface after decades, even as NASA once more canceled the unmanned Artemis 1 trip to the moon. In a rapid disconnect phase of the Space Launch System (SLS) rocket launch on Saturday, NASA engineers were unable to stop a hydrogen leak. NASA has a tolerance for a limited quantity of hydrogen leaking, and anything beyond a 4% concentration of hydrogen close to the fast disconnect is regarded as a flammability threat, according to Eric Berger of Ars Technica. In response to Berger's correct evaluation, Musk stated, H2 hydrogen was initially used in the Raptor design before being replaced with CH4 hydrogen. In my opinion, the latter offers the optimum balance between high efficiency and simplicity of use. The delta-V difference between H2 and CH4 is minimal for the majority of missions, according to Musk. Because the CH4 tank is significantly smaller and doesn't require insulation, the difference in velocity that a rocket engine could impose on a spacecraft depending on its unique impulse and changes in its own mass is known as the delta-V. According to him, methane, CH4, which is easier to manufacture on Mars, is extremely critical for launch missions. SpaceX is one of the first businesses to employ liquid hydrogen and methane as fuel. As his space company gets ready to launch the Starship giant rocket to carry people and goods to the moon, Mars, and beyond in 20 years, Musk also envisions a self-sustaining city on the Red Planet. The story claims that the NASA showstopper was a line with 8-inch diameter supplying liquid hydrogen to the rocket. At the intake, it developed a quick disconnect leak that persisted and let water into the car. Several space industry experts have criticized the Artemis program. Let's now examine the upcoming missions that are scheduled. All crewed Artemis missions launched on the Space Launch System from Launch Complex 39B at the Kennedy Space Center as of December 2020. According to current plans, some supporting hardware will be launched from different launch pads and on different vehicles. William H. Gerstenmaier envisioned 4 launches of the SLS Block 1B launch vehicle with crewed Orion spacecraft and logistical modules to the Gateway between 2024 and 2028, in a plan that was compiled before his 10th of July 2019 reassignments. Plans to send people back to the moon in 2024 were scrapped in November 2021, and the Artemis 3 mission was put off until at least 2025. To test in situ resource utilization and nuclear power on the lunar surface with a largely reusable lander, crewed Artemis V through IX missions were scheduled to launch annually between 2027 and 2031 as of October 2021, according to plans that are still in place at the time. 4 astronauts would be transported in Artemis VII in 2029 to the Foundation Habitat, a surface lunar base. The Foundation Habitat, which would be utilized for prolonged crewed lunar surface missions, would be launched alongside the mobile habitat by an unidentified Super Heavy launcher. Commercial launch vehicles would launch various cargoes to the Gateway before each crewed Artemis trip, such as refueling depots and disposable parts of the lunar lander. The most recent manifest includes missions from Artemis IV through IX that have not been planned or financed but are indicated in NASA's timeframes. That is, unless SLS actually experiences a serious issue during the initial launch attempt. According to Cohen, to have only one test launch before sending passengers on a flight around the moon on the second mission, he stated, they are really whistling past the cemetery on this one. They have no space to maneuver if this launch doesn't go as planned. With that, we come to the end of this video. Tell us about your thoughts in the comments section. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and also enable that bell icon for more interesting content. Also, check out other videos on our channel. We'll be back with another amazing video soon.